This has got to be one of the worst stories I've ever heard. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about a British Columbia, Canada man who opted for medically assisted death after waiting 10 weeks in the hospital for cancer treatment that never came. He pretty much gave up. He was in agony. He was in pain. He said, you know what? Rather than trying to get this treatment and it's not happening, they're not giving me a schedule, I'm going to go ahead and end it. Now, this is so sad. Rest in peace to this man, and prayers out to his family. He was married, and I think he had a stepdaughter. Prayers out to you guys. Hopefully you can move forward in a positive way in your life, because this has got to be devastating. Now, I think, in my humble opinion now, this is a result of universal health care. And when they were proposing it here in the States, these kind of things were feared. Now, I'm not going to say what I'm going to tell you right now is exactly what happened, but I know it's going to be in the minds of many. Maybe, just maybe, his treatment was stalled out and pushed back because it was more expensive than what he ultimately did. You see, you can just have the medically assisted death. And by the way, that wasn't delayed, but the cancer treatment was. If you could just have that, that'll be cheaper than the cancer treatment to the government, because they're paying for it, right? That's what I would think. It's so bad in Canada, the so-called free healthcare becomes secondary. And if you really want service, if you really want to get treated, you go to the US. Now, that's going to be expensive. And I read an article about this, and his wife said, well, we would have done that, but we don't have that kind of money. We're regular people. We don't have that kind of money. Now, you're paying very high taxes to the Canadian government. You would think you'd be able to get treated for cancer in a timely period, but that's not what happened. Now, before I go any further, let's get into an article. And also, we have video of this, a news clip. Here's an article right here on National Post. You see what the headline says. British Columbia man opts for medically assisted death after cancer treatment delayed. 6 months into the British Columbia NDP government's move to send breast cancer and prostate cancer patients to 2 clinics in Bellingham, that's Washington State, U.S., the province's wait times have actually gotten worse. And the whole point of sending them to Bellingham was to reduce the wait time. They said the average wait time for, I think, chemotherapy was like 30 days, or they said 75% of people were treated within the 30-day mark. Something like that. Y'all, if I'm saying something that's incorrect, y'all let me know. But there was a waiting time. There was a backlog. And they told that to this man right here. His name was Dan Quayle, 52 years old. And there is his wife and her daughter. Okay. They told him we got a backlog. And then there was no real date set. By the time they actually set a date for him to get cancer treatment, he had already arranged to go through with the medically assisted death. Basically like euthanasia. And, you know, this is so sad because we're treating human beings like dogs. Okay, if here's a scenario, and I don't want to compare this gentleman to an animal, but that's what's happening to us. They want to do that to us, and I don't like it. So I don't want anybody to get offended. But it's like if you have a pet dog and they say, okay, this operation is going to cost $6,000, and your dog is 8 years old, and this particular breed typically lives to be about 10 years old. So the operation may or may not work, 50-50 chance, toss up. And if it works, your dog might have 6 more months to a year to live. Or you can put your dog down. It'll be a fraction of the cost. It'll be painless, and they won't be suffering, and you won't spend $6,000. So what do you want to do? That's how they want to treat us, in my humble opinion, and it's not right. I don't like it. It's unfair. It's inhumane. But that's where we are, and that was feared when, again, they were trying to propose universal health care here in the States. Now, there is a news clip here. If you want to see this clip in full without my commentary, link, as always, will be in the description. If you're on IG, visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We begin with the excruciating cancer journey of a 52-year-old Victoria man. He spent the last few months of his life in hospital.
So you see what this subhead right here says. Family says British Columbia's healthcare system failed them. Okay? Failed them.
Waiting for treatment.
Let's back up a little bit because she was talking about how long he was in the hospital.
Of a 52-year-old Victoria man. He spent the last few months of his life in hospital.
So he spent months of his life in hospital, but I think there was like a 10-week waiting period to get the actual cancer treatment. Let's see if they clarify that.
Waiting for treatment, but the pain was too much and he opted for a medically assisted death. His family is speaking out tonight about a system in crisis. CTV's Rob Buffum has the story.
Kathleen Carmichael says BC's healthcare system let her family down. Her partner, Dan, opted for a medically assisted death, or MAID, 13 days ago, a choice he made after waiting for chemotherapy and treatment.
The oncologist would come and say, well, we're pretty backlogged right now, so hang in there.
Hang in there? I mean, what in the world? I mean, it's free healthcare, but is it free?
You know, like what?
But Dan Quayle ran out of time. The 52-year-old died on November 24th. The grandfather, described as jolly, big-hearted, kind, and playful with kids, was diagnosed with esophageal cancer months after first feeling ill. While he waited for treatment, his health declined until he elected MAID.
Heartbroken for my mom, for his kids, my kids. It's devastating. And I know this isn't the only story, so it just feels heavy for everyone.
The family is speaking out, not critical of any one doctor, but the system, hoping others won't have to endure what they've gone through.
I mean, the system is pretty clear what's going on. In my humble opinion, it's just the so-called free healthcare is not very free. It's not very free. And they have problems. They have serious issues. So when people talk about, oh, well, the healthcare costs too much in the U.S., you might be right. But these kind of scenes, you don't really see that often. You may see it, but it's not like they're just going to have you there waiting. The money thing is just rough. But again, I read the article and they said that they would have come to the U.S. if they had the money. And in the same article that I showed you a little while ago, there was, I believe it was a couple or at least one person who went to the U.S., had to spend $200,000 cash on a treatment that wound up saving their life that they would not have gotten at all in Canada, at least not by the time they needed it, because, you know, your time, one thing you don't have a lot of in life is time. And as time progresses, you know, whatever you may have can progressively get worse. You got to treat it early to try and have the best chance of being able to succeed.
I'm so broken.
Their pain, as numbers reported on radiation therapy, reveal only 75% of patients in BC are getting it within the recommended 28-day benchmark.
So that's what I was saying earlier. 75% of those in BC are getting radiation treatment within the first 28 days. Okay. And I think that's down from, I think it's 2% down from the previous month when they took that same statistic.
Lower than the 77% in May, when the province started sending patients to Bellingham for radiation.
I've directed the health minister to work with the cancer agency to address wait times that are unacceptable for British Columbians.
The province has hired 61 oncologists and 27 radiation therapists since April. The health minister says those waiting longer than the benchmarks for radiation are being prioritized, and progress will soon be made on the others. Significant improvement in the next few months.
Now, one thing I want to say is that there was a higher demand for some reason in British Columbia by about 16% for cancer treatment. I don't know what sparked that, what caused it. I have no way of being able to speculate on that, but they're saying that's part of the reason why there are extended wait times. And again, they're going to Bellingham, which is in Washington State, right there near the border of Washington and British Columbia, not far from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Those numbers, the ones within 28 days, are going to follow because there are fewer people now on the wait list.
It was chemotherapy that Dan Quayle was told would extend his life. Wait times for that treatment haven't been released by the province yet. Those affected most don't need stats to gauge the impact of delays.
We always just felt like we were waiting and waiting and waiting.
Well, you know, it wasn't 28 days. They said at least 10 weeks. And the person at the very beginning, the journalist, said that he was in hospital for months waiting on therapy, waiting on treatment for his cancer, and it didn't happen. So he was like, my health is declining. Because again, your time is so precious. Your health is declining while you're not getting treatment. So you're just in pain every day. And you're like, okay, here's this new thing they have, medically assisted death. I'll just do that, which is just terrible.
And I think early detection could have given my dad some more time.
Now, there's more to this video, but I'll leave it right there. This is a pretty rough story. Again, he was waiting for weeks, maybe even months, for treatment. It never happened. And to go to the U.S. might have been too expensive for him. You work hard all your life. You pay into the system. You pay very high taxes. And your government lets you down. Really unfortunate. But as I close, I want to say this. These kind of stories happen. I'm not trying to say our healthcare over here in the States is perfect, but obviously it's not perfect over there. And they're sending people here to the States to get treated. So clearly there's a problem. There's a problem in a lot of different places, but waiting just weeks and weeks and weeks to get chemotherapy and your health is declining. I mean, that's just rough. It really is. Really unfortunate. And may Mr. Quill rest in peace, and prayers out to his family. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you live in Canada? Do you have any experience with the healthcare system up there? Do you have any horror stories? If you do, let me know in the comments. How about over here in the States? Do you have any horror stories here? Because again, I'm not trying to say that the U.S. is perfect and Canada is just terrible, horrible. But I want to say that no system is perfect. And just because it's free does not mean it's good. And with so-called free healthcare, there are some drawbacks. There'll be some things that happen where it makes you scratch your head. Was this done on purpose to save money? I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it was. But if you are in that situation, if it happens to you, that will cross your mind. And I want to ask you guys' opinion on that. Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.